Hey hockey nuts, let's talk some hockey. But first, I gotta show you, I got my green Bruins jersey on. As you can see, it's got Patrice Bergeron's name and number on the back. And the reason I got it on is today is podcast day. The whole reason I started the channel was first to put the video portion of our weekly podcast on a platform where people can watch it after the fact. We do stream the podcast live each week on YouTube, right here on this channel, and then of course we also upload the audio version of the podcast to the channel for those who want to listen to it there. But you can also subscribe to the podcast through whatever podcast app or software that you use to organize that stuff. But we do have some games we need to talk about from last night, and then this will probably be the only video today other than the podcast itself, only because I've got to do my homework before we do the podcast. I got to get my show notes ready, and I haven't done that yet. So let's talk about the games from last night. Thursday, the 22nd of February, was a busy night. We had 11 games last night, and if you watched any of my little short videos talking about trades and some of the previous day's games, you saw how busy it was because I kept my phone on my desk, and I have goal notifications turned on through the NHL app, and I was getting goal horns all night long last night. So, and I really didn't want to shut it off. I wanted to keep that as part of the reality, kind of the behind-the-scenes stuff of going on. But anyway, let's get into the games. Let's talk about the Islanders Maple Leafs first. The Islanders and the Maple Leafs played a game last night. 29-28-7 is now the record for the Islanders after this shootout loss. Toronto ends up winning the game in the shootout. Yaroslav Halak, 28 saves in the losing effort. Anderson, 32 saves in the winning effort. And goal scorers for New York, Barzal, Eberle, and Pollock. And the goal scorers for Toronto, Marner, Matthews, Riley, and Bozak got the shootout winner. And it was a game where, you know, granted, taking a look at where they are in the standings, Toronto is kind of sitting comfortably there in that top three in the Atlantic. There's quite a gap between them and the teams behind them, although it is closing. Florida is going to make it interesting, but we'll get into them. But New York Islanders are fighting for their lives right now, playoff-wise. And they really needed to have 2 points last night. And they came up short. And in fact, the Islanders had the lead with just a few minutes left in the third. Toronto ties the game with 3:29 left in the third period. And then and they end up winning the game in the shootout. So if you're an Islanders fan, you're feeling today like, you know, you're happy that they got a point, but overall you're disappointed because you know, there was a second point sitting there with just a few minutes left, and they couldn't put it together. The other thing that coming out of that game, Austin Matthews got kind of sandwiched in a hit and took a hit from Cal Clutterbuck last night, and he left the game. And he had a team of doctors surrounding him as he was leaving the game, so it seems like he may be out for a little while. At least that was the impression that I got, just with the amount of concern that the team staff had. He appeared to be nursing a shoulder injury of some kind, whether it be collarbone, shoulder, something in that area. It's an upper body injury, of course. Haven't heard any updates as of yet on his status, but the talk after the game coming out of the Toronto, press sounds like he may be out for a little while. So that, if that is the case, Toronto is going to be in trouble here for a little bit as they try to get themselves prepared for the playoffs. And if they don't have Matthews going into the playoffs, that's going to make them a much easier team to beat for whoever ends up playing them, probably these guys. So, so good news that Toronto got the win. Bad news that they lost Matthews in the process, and hopefully he won't be out for long for their sake. Next game, Rangers and Canadiens, battle of the red, white, and blues, or bleu, blanc, et rouge in the case of Montreal. Montreal ends up winning the game 3-1. This is a game between two teams that were expected to be playoff teams this year, but have failed miserably throughout this season. New York Rangers have been in sell mode for the past couple of weeks. They've gotten rid of a couple of players. They got rid of Holden a week or so ago, and then after the game last night, we found out that Grabner was moved. And in net last night, it was a battle of the backup goalies. Georgiev with 38 saves in the losing effort for New York. Niemi 31 saves in the winning effort for Montreal. Kevin Hayes gets the goal for the Rangers. Good to see that he's back in the lineup. Danault, Petrie, and Plekanec got the goals for Montreal. Montreal was on a 6-game losing streak going into the game, and that is now over. But the Rangers, their losing streak has gone on to 5 now. So both teams were on losing streaks going in. So one of them obviously was going to end the streak, and in this case it was Montreal. Also, in case of Montreal, it came out yesterday, 2 players in particular, they've been out for, well, one's been out for a while and the other one's been kind of in and out of the lineup. Shea Weber, looks like his season is over. They announced today that he won't be coming back the rest of this season, and why would he? I mean, what sense would it be to rush him back? They're not going to make the playoffs. So, and then Carey Price has a concussion. He took a puck to the mask. I don't know if it was in practice or if it happened in a game, but either way, getting a puck to the mask is not a pleasant experience for a goaltender. And he suffered a concussion on that, so it must have been a pretty hard shot, or he gets concussions very easily. But either way, Carey Price is going to be out for a little while, which is why Niemi ended up in net last night. So it'll be interesting to see what Montreal does going forward. They'll probably just bring up one of their American Hockey League goalies and just ride out the season with Niemi and whoever that is. And they may have already announced that. I haven't seen. Okay, let's move on to the next game. Columbus at Philly. These are two teams that are battling for playoff spots. Philadelphia is in a better spot than Columbus is. Columbus is currently right there in that wild card, right at the top of the standings, and they're fighting for their lives playoff-wise. But Columbus goes into Philly, but Philly ends up winning the game. It ends up being a 2-1 score. Bobrovsky, 18 saves in the losing effort for Columbus. Mrazek, in his first start as a Philadelphia Flyer, gets 19 saves in the win. So very low shot count in this game. So obviously both teams were playing with playoff intensity as both teams are fighting for all the points that they can get. And the shot count was very, very low in this game overall. Panarin gets the goal for Columbus. Giroux and Patrick, a little mix of old and new, gets the, or old and young, I guess this would be the proper way to say it. Giroux and Patrick get the goals for Philadelphia. And it was also mentioned in that game last night that Wayne Simmons has now been out a couple of games now, and sounds like he's going to be out 2 to 3 weeks with his injury. But other than that little bit of bad news, it is all good news for the Philadelphia Flyers right now. This is their 4th win in a row. They're now 8-0-2 in their last 10. So Philadelphia is playing on fire right now, and they're nipping at the heels of the Capitals and the Penguins. Penguins have been playing very well as well, but the Capitals have been sputtering a little bit, and they're very much in danger of dropping not only out of that first spot, but they could go all the way down to a wild card spot if they're not careful, because Pittsburgh and Philly are both playing lights out right now. So 2-1 win in that one for Philadelphia. Next game, Tampa Bay and Ottawa. Ottawa coming off of, or this is the second half of a back-to-back for them. And they're hosting Tampa Bay. I believe the night before Ottawa was in Chicago. So not sure how long of a flight that is from Chicago to Ottawa. I guess it's probably not going to be that bad. But anyway, anytime you got to play back-to-backs, it's not fun, especially if one of those two is on the road. But Tampa Bay basically got in a little bit earlier. We actually got back to Ottawa before Ottawa did, so they were sitting there waiting for Ottawa, and Tampa Bay, being already a very strong team, give them a really big advantage. And it ultimately paid off because Tampa Bay ends up winning that game 4-3. Vasilevsky sat that game. Domingue ended up playing for Tampa Bay. He gets 33 saves in the winning effort. Hedman, Johnson, Nemestikov, and Point got the goals for Tampa Bay. And Kucherov got, I think he got 2 assists in that game, which brings his point total to 80. He's now, well, he has been leading the league, but 80 points is now the mark where he's at, with 32 goals and 48 assists. So the question remains is whether or not Kucherov ends up with 100 points. That's a magical milestone in any NHL season, is how many hundred. I remember the days when I was in the 80s where 100 points was no big deal if you were generally a bad team if you didn't have at least one player with 100 points or more. But back then there were guys hitting 200 points. Well, one guy hitting 200 points in a season. So, but there were 20 to 30 players every year getting at least 100 points. Nowadays, we're lucky if we have 1 or 2 that make it that far. But Kucherov right now has the best shot at it out of anybody in the league, and he's at 80. There's roughly 25 games to go. He only needs 20 points to reach that plateau. I think he gets it. So, a win for Tampa Bay, 4-3 in that game. All right, let's talk about the Washington Capitals at the Florida Panthers. I watched the start of this game, and they did a very nice and a very emotional tribute to the Parkland Stoneham Douglas High School tragedy that happened earlier in the week. And they did a very nice, similar to what Vegas did for the shootings back in October in Las Vegas. They did a similar tribute to all of the, to show support to all of the folks in Parkland for that tragedy. They basically changed the entire look of the arena. They removed all the advertising throughout the arena, and they, on the boards, they just had logos referencing Stoneham Douglas High School. So yeah, that game took on a very somber approach pretty much all night long, because I was in and out of that game most of the night, and they were talking, a lot about how some of the players live in Parkland. Roberto Luongo spoke before the game. He's a Parkland resident. His wife apparently is originally from that area. I don't know if she went to Stoneman Douglas High School, but his kids are definitely in that school system. So that one hit home for him hit home pretty hard for him. So, and a couple of the other players also live in the Parkland area. So, but once they got the game going, which Luongo did go ahead and start, it was a pretty good game overall. Capitals didn't play as well as they had been in the past, but Florida came out and played pretty hard. They obviously wanted to get the win for the home crowd. And at one point it was 2-1 Capitals going into the third, but Trocheck tied the game. Bukestad tied the game with a little less than 4 minutes left in the game, and then with 19.1 seconds left in regulation, Trocheck gets the goal to essentially win the game for Florida. And it was a regulation win, so the Capitals come out of there with no points. Luongo 33 saves, which is remarkable considering if you watch the pregame ceremonies, how emotional he was during that. And he actually did a nice speech. You should look it up. It's the video of that is available everywhere. I can't play it obviously. Holtby with the 30 save effort in the losing cause. Burakovsky and Eller got the goals for the Capitals. As I said before, Bukestad, Malman, who got his first NHL goal. He actually put the game up 1-0. He got the first goal for Florida to get them on the board. And then Trocheck with the game winner late in the third. So good game all around for Florida, and good feeling for coming out of that game for everybody involved. This video is running a little long. I have to keep stopping it because recording with this particular camera, it only gives me 10 minutes recording time before it stops. So I guess if I lowered the resolution, lowered the frames per second, I could get longer recording times, but I want the high quality. So I'm going to have to stop every 10, with every video I do with this particular camera, I'm going to have to stop the camera every 10 minutes to reset it. So just bear with that, please. All right, next game. San Jose at Nashville. This one was pretty much a blowout from start to finish. Oh, well, actually, no, it wasn't a blowout, I guess. It didn't become a blowout until the third. But anyway, Nashville wins this one going away 7-1. Nashville gets 4 goals in the third period to really blow the doors open on this game. Rinne with 33 saves in the winning effort, and Dell 39 saves in the losing effort. Couture got the goal for the Sharks, and the goals scored by Nashville, I didn't list the players' names, but it was 7 different players on the Nashville roster that got goals. And pretty safe to say, if your favorite player is on the Nashville Predators, he probably got a goal last night because almost half the roster got one. So, and the only other part to note on this one, this win for Rinne was his 300th win of his career. So kudos to him for that. All right, next game. Minnesota at New Jersey. Minnesota comes out on top 4-2 in that game. Stalock 38 saves in the winning effort. Lack 21 saves in the losing effort for New Jersey. Eriksson, Ek, Riley, Stahl, and Stewart get the goals for Minnesota. Hall and Nelson get the goals for New Jersey. And for Taylor Hall, that means his streak continues. It is now officially at 13 games by NHL standards, but it's his 20th game in a row with at least a point. So, and at one point in this game, Minnesota was down 2-0, and then they scored four unanswered goals to take the lead and ultimately win the game. So, yeah, Minnesota gets up to 73 points. New Jersey stays at 70. Okay, next game, Calgary at Arizona. By this point in the evening, I was getting pretty tired, as I only got a few hours of sleep the night before. So I didn't really watch any of this game at all. Calgary gets 5 goals from 5 different players. Again, I didn't list them there, to win the game for them. Connaughton and Stepan get the goals for Arizona. Gillies with the win, 35 saves. Ranta with the loss, 33 saves. Calgary gets the win despite the fact that they're on the second half of a back-to-back. So that's good for them. Those are always tough to get. Of course, Arizona is at the bottom of the standings. They've been playing well of late, but Calgary needed the points tonight, so they went out there and got them. All right, next game. Oilers at Avalanche, or Avalanche at Oilers. Sorry. This one was actually a pretty decent game overall. I watched bits and pieces of it. Varlamov, 43 saves for the Avalanche. Talbot, 28 saves for the Oilers. The Oilers definitely outshot the Avs in this one. Wilson and Girard get the goals for Colorado. Draisaitl and Cassian get the goals in regulation for the Oilers. And then Connor McDavid becomes yet again the overtime hero. And the Oilers score the overtime goal and win the game 3-2 with McDavid getting the goal in that one. So even though Colorado is fighting for a playoff spot and they need the points bad, they did get one out of this game. The Oilers wanted that feel-good win for their sake because at 54 points, they're still, and that's including the win last night, they're still way, way behind the pack in terms of playoff hopes. Anyway, all right, next game. Let's try to wrap this up in this segment of the video. Dallas with a 2-0 win over LA. Lettinen 18 saves, Quick 26 saves for LA. This game was actually, I was in and out of this game too. It was a 0-0 score after 2 and well into the third. Sagan finally broke the ice in the third period, scoring their first goal, and then Radulov got the empty netter to seal the win. Dallas had played the night before, so they were on the back half of a back-to-back, and they ended up getting the win in that one, despite playing the night before. So, all right, where were we? Oh, yeah, Dallas, LA. Not much more to talk about in that game. I pretty much said it in the last little segment there. But let's move on to the next one. And it's not the last game of the night, but it certainly is the last one we're talking about in this particular video. Buffalo at Detroit. Both teams on the outside looking in. Both teams are in sell mode in terms of trade deadline. But Buffalo gets the win in overtime in this one. Leonard, 35 saves in the winning effort. Howard, 27 saves in the losing effort. Kane, Ristolainen, and Scandella with the goals for Buffalo. Howard, Abelkader. I'm sorry, not Howard. Why would Howard score a goal? Abelkader, Eriksson getting the goals for Detroit. Scandella got the overtime winner in this one. Again, look for these two teams to be sellers at the deadline. The deadline's only a couple days away, so you fans of either of these two teams, hopefully you're excited for either the prospects and or the picks that you'll be getting in return, because that's kind of the way it's going to go down. So be interesting to see what kind of players come out of there. I know Patrick Kane has been a big rumor surrounding him for quite a while now there in Buffalo. So, and as always, I've got all the teams that were off last night over here in one little section. Partly not to lose the magnets, and the other part is if you're looking for your team on these game updates, all 30 team logos should be on the board at all times, even if they're not playing. So, and there they are, all the ones that didn't play. So, be a quiet night around the NHL. I think there's only like 5 games Friday night, but Saturday is a very busy day as usual for a Saturday, and we'll have all the details coming up. And again, let me know what your thoughts are on these games down in the comments. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you're new here. And thanks for watching. And as always, we'll catch you in the next one. See ya.